And joining us now is Jowanka Jakubek-Lalik, Associate Professor, University of Warsaw. Welcome, Professor, to TVP World. Thanks for taking the time.
Good morning. Nice to have you here.
Good morning. Okay, so let's start with some basic information. The Justice Fund, what is it and what's it used for?
The Justice Fund is actually a state fund, which objective is to provide some monetary assistance for the victims of crimes, the witnesses of crimes, also to help people in the post-penitentiary situations. So this is the fund which is established by the government and administered by the Minister of Justice for this kind of situations.
Okay, so it's there to help victims of crime, it's there to help people who've just been released from prison and so on. What are the charges actually against the former Deputy Justice Minister?
Okay, so the way that this Justice Fund operates is that there are some, let's say, competitions. So the organizations which are helping the victims of crime, or they have designed some programs for the prevention of crimes, or also the assistance for the people who are coming out of prison, they compete in they should be transparent, this kind of competitions. The problem was in the past government of Law and Justice that those competitions were not transparent at all, and also that the money was misused. And there are a lot of evidence stating that the money, instead of being directed to the organizations which really aim to help the victims of the crimes, they were directed to the organizations which were closely linked to the ruling political party, and especially one of the smaller coalition parties, which is Sovereign Poland. So the Deputy Justice Minister and also the main Justice Minister were coming from this smaller party. And this funds, this public money was transferred to the organizations that were very, very closely linked to the political party, instead of organizations whose objective is really to assist the victims of the crime.
And what were the funds actually used for, according to the allegations, when transferred to connected parties?
Well, I think that there needs to be still an investigation is ongoing, so we don't have all of the information now, but there for sure are some links that the funds were misused, for example, for the election purposes. So for the electoral campaign of the politicians coming from this party. So one of the methods was, for example, sponsoring some local events in some communities, in some countrysides in Poland, sponsoring some equipment for the fire brigades in some smaller communities. So this is just the example. So these were the kind of ways of transferring this public money to gain political support by the members of this party, because of course when they were transferring the money, they explained that this is because of their involvement and their support to the communities, and they were expecting to gain political support. So this is just one of the mechanisms. I'm not sure to what extent all of the mechanisms are already well discovered and well established. I think that it is still the job of the prosecution office to have the fully fledged investigation to really check where exactly all these funds were going.
Understood. Now, Mr. Romanowski was Deputy Justice Minister. Is the Deputy Minister himself actually going to be treated in the same way?
Well, Mr. Romanowski, as a Deputy Minister of Justice, was the administrator of the fund, and the accusations against him are that he was not only misusing the funds, but he was also certifying some not true information in the documents. So this is falsifying of public documents. It's a very serious accusation. Also, there is another accusation that he was participating actually in an organized group, which was aimed at committing crimes against the state property. So it's not only that he was acting on his own behalf, let's say, as a politician of the Sovereign Poland Party, but he was also a member of the organized group, which objective was to transfer those public funds to the political party or the supporting organizations of the political party. So these accusations are very serious. And currently, after the immunity of the deputy minister has been waived, we can expect further actions from the public prosecution.
Understood. Now, of course, Mr. Romanowski challenges this. He denies the charges, and he says this is a political ploy. There is a risk, isn't there, Professor, that, you know, if and when the government, the current government changes, the opposition will do exactly the same in return, isn't there?
Well, I would say that in the country which is governed by the rule of law, the law should be prevailing in this kind of situations. So there should not be any political immunity understood as something that is preventing the politicians to take any responsibility for illegal actions. So, of course, it needs to be properly, let's say, understood and properly investigated. But on the other hand, the mechanisms of waiving the immunity are quite clear and transparent. So it's a process consisting of several steps. So first of all, the parliament needs to vote on waiving the immunity, and only then the public prosecution can take action and actually have further steps in the investigations. Of course, there is a degree of, let's say, political responsibility of all the politicians, but in the end, it's about how they were using or misusing the law and misusing public funds. So if any politician from any party which is currently ruling or currently in opposition has this kind of charges, they should be properly investigated. And it should not matter who is in power, who is in government. The procedures should look exactly the same way in all of the governments.
Understood. Now, of course, Mr. Romanowski is not the only one whose immunity has been stripped away. We also have the previous defence minister, Mr. Błaszczak, against whom defamation charges are being brought. Now, defamation, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is surely on a completely different level to the misappropriation of funds, and yet the former defence minister's immunity has been stripped away there as well. I mean, is there some kind of dividing line? In other words, charges have to meet a certain seriousness level, if you like, before immunity is stripped.
Well, I think it's subject to assessment, yes, to what extent the charges are serious or not serious. The whole purpose of parliamentary immunity is to protect the politicians when they are exercising their mandate, to protect them from any kind of political investigations or arrest, which could be directed against their participation in the political life, political decision-making, voting in the parliament, for example, and so on. In these cases, we have some accusations which are referring to their past actions, and also the political, the parliamentary immunity is not only directed against the criminal charges, but also civil charges. So here we can also differentiate between those two types of charges, but both of them are generally covered by the parliamentary immunity. So there is, let's say, no formal, no legal counter requirement, as we can say, to prevent the politicians from taking accountability and responsibility immunity for their past actions. So in both cases, if the accusations are serious or not serious, we can of course discuss that. However, both criminal and civil cases are covered by the political immunity. So if we want to have this kind of procedure in place, we need to first of all take care of the legal requirement to waive the immunity of the parliamentarian.
Understood. Now, immunity, as you just laid out for us, Professor, is given to parliamentarians for a reason, and the reason is to allow them to actually conduct their roles effectively and efficiently without worrying, about being tied up in court every 5 minutes. Is there a risk, therefore, when they see parliamentary immunity being stripped to such an extent as is happening now, that they will simply refuse to make any decisions which might be construed to be some kind of criminal or civil wrong?
I don't think that the politicians will treat that as a situation where they will not take their activities. First of all, we need to understand that the process is quite complicated, so it's not happening overnight. First of all, we always need to secure the majority in the parliament to actually waive the immunity of the politician, and only then the prosecution and police can take any action. And of course, it is still not certain to what extent those actions will be taken. For example, in the case of former Minister Błaszczak. So here I will say that because the process is formalized, it's it's a procedure which is laid in the law. When this procedure is actually executed, we need to just have in mind that the process needs to be according to all the legal remedies and legal requirements. If those remedies and requirements are met, I think that the politicians should not be worried, and they only should be worried that all of their actions should be legal and also in accordance with the principles which are normal principles for the rule of law.
Understood. Thank you very much indeed for your analysis there, Professor. And we shall, of course, be watching the situation carefully.
Absolutely. Thank you.